My favorite thing about Shipt since I signed up for Target Circle 360? No price markups when I order same-day delivery from tons of local stores. Only a handful of alcohol retailers and items don't count. I won't lie, I've had too much fun being like, markups on groceries? Not in my fridge. Markups on pet food? Not for my DOG. Markups on tools, electronics, home goods, meds? Not in my house. Anyway, it's awesome. Order now at shipt.com/360. Terms apply.
This podcast is brought to you by TeamTrade, a digital solution that helps you hire, optimize, and retain employees. Using psychometric assessments to identify more than 100 professional mindset traits, it gives instant reports you can use to build high-performing teams. Get 2 free profiles today, no commitment, no credit card required, at teamtrait.com. TeamTrait.com. Welcome to the Manage Smarter podcast with hosts C. Lee Smith and Audrey Strong. We're glad you're here for discussions on new ways to manage smarter, hire, develop, and retain talent, improve results, and propel team performance to new heights. This is the Manage Smarter podcast.
A philosopher, a deep tech investor, and a former elite athlete, and the intersection of business and philosophy with a global expert. We got a lot going on this show today, and we have never really touched on the intersectionality of philosophy and business, Lee.
Well, and the other thing that's fun about today, and of course, you're going to have a lot of fun because our guest today is a Scandinavian. He's a Viking, just like my co-host for this show. And you guys have a lot in common. So we're going to talk a little bit about applying some of the codes, from that to business success, management, leadership. And spoiler alert, we're not going to talk about plundering and pillaging. So it'll be a fun day.
Ancient history. Welcome to Manage Smarter, everyone. My name is Audrey Strong. I am the Vice President of Communications here at Sales Fuel.
And the Viking. I am C. Lee Smith. I am the CEO and founder and not Viking of Sales Fuel.
All right. Anders Indset, known as the business philosopher, is a Norwegian-born writer, deep tech investor, and a former elite athlete, 5-time Spiegel best-selling author with 6 international books to his name, recognized by Thinkers 50 as one of the most influential thinkers in tech and leadership for the years to come. Truly a global guest. We're very lucky to have him today, I might add. Indset is a trusted sparring partner and advisor to international CEOs, politicos, and a guest lecturer at leading international business schools, founder of the Nordisk Group, the Global Institute of Leadership and Technology, and the Quantum Economy Alliance. All right, the latest book, why we're bringing up Vikings, is entitled The Viking Code, The Art and Science of Norwegian Success, which explores Norwegian culture and how its values can be applied to improve your life and help you achieve better success. Anders, thanks for coming today. This is quite a treat.
Audrey, Lee, thanks for having me. I'm a pleasure to be with you.
All right, so where do we start with the Viking Code? It's like a 250-page book. I looked at it this morning. 7 steps to this, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's more of a life philosophy. So whereas we have the 7 outlined kind of sort of tangible things that are related to how this success came to be for a lot of Norwegian athletes and also in business and politics and education, the book itself is more of a philosophy on what we would, I'm a Norwegian, but I live in Germany. We would say Lebendigkeit, the vitality of life, how to live a vital and active life. And I think that is the essence of the book. Even so it's compact, the first part is obviously about the nitty-gritty and the tangible steps to take in terms of leadership and how to grow as a human being. But the second part goes deeper into the philosophy and how this can be applied to business and politics and education. So it goes a little bit beyond those 7 steps, but those are obviously the core nucleus of what I refer to as the Viking Code.
Which one is your favorite of the 7?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, Lee. I think I play with the micro ambition. And the micro ambition is basically, in today's society, we build a reactive society where it's thumbs up, thumbs down, reacting to algorithm, driving the impulses, the dopamine. So we get exhausted, we get tired and worn down from acting and performing and putting vitality into life. So we need to go to sabbaticals and retreats. I think that can be taken back because at the foundation of humanity, the thing that we have is progress. And when I say so, I define success as experienced progress. So everything in life compounds into a result, but it is in small steps, the micro ambitions that you have that you can experience. So I used to do sport, as you said, I have built my companies. I never felt successful. I was always chasing the finite goal, the next thing, right? Now I see myself as very successful for me, because I give purpose to life. I learn, I grow. I get up in the morning. I'm privileged to get to learn and experience progress. And that is the essence of the micro ambitions. So if you put micro ambitions into your daily life, and you continue to do that, the results will follow. So in the light of big wishes and goals and dreams, I think it's also very important to focus on those small steps to realize and experience normality and ordinary happenings where you experience that you progress, like a small child that gets up and gets cheered on by their parents after falling down a gazillion times, and you see the big smile. And those are the essence of how to live an active life. And I think in today's society, this is really important, in particular in the lights of AI and automation and all that. So that's my favorite.
We love storytelling on this show and anecdotes. So what brought you to love the concept of micro ambition? Do you have something that happened to you or something that happened with your business?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at my history, people will think there was like this one thing that changed my life, and I got into philosophy. I started speaking and writing after being a hardcore capitalist or a professional athlete. But it was more of a slow transition. But digging deeper into philosophy and also investing in technology and grasping the essence of like AI and quantum tech that is emerging, I got to see that humanity or we as a species, we have become very, as I said before, reactive, and it's something that I'm also a bit, this is it's kind of sort of something that I worry about, that with all the technology and all the dopamine, and we are like kind of sort of amusing ourselves to death, as Neil Postman wrote back in 1984, but we're not enjoying the ride, right? So giving that vitality back into life, I think that's the most fundamental thing that we will be confronted with in the next 10, 15 years to come, as technology takes over a lot of the things that we do today. And that, basically boils down to very fundamental philosophical questions, meaning of life, giving meaning to life and living an active life. So I wouldn't say there was like this one point. It's more of a continuum of learning and experiencing that the Lebendigkeit, the vitality of life, qualia, what it feels like to be something. That is what makes us human. And maybe it's the only thing that distinguishes us from technology. And I think it's important that we recognize that when we shape, super intelligence or artificial general intelligence. So it's been more of a slow ride into the deeper philosophy of these things.
So if you say the word Viking to someone in North America, two things come to mind immediately. One is a purple football team that's never won a Super Bowl. And the other one is, you get the mental image of these big guys on a boat, with shields, and they're rowing the boat. And that resonates with me because I'm big into rowing. Anyone that's listened to the show in the past, we brought it up a couple of times before. And the thing about that is that, each person has a particular strength in that boat. That's where they're at in that boat. But everybody has to row the boat, and they have to trust that everybody else in the boat's going to do their job. And I bring this back around to your book because you talk a lot about trust and different kinds of trust. And I found that fascinating. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you had to go down to Minnesota, right? You had to thank you so much for reminding me.
We've just lost a few listeners in Minnesota, sorry.
Well, yeah, I'm going to bring them back, though. I mean, it's just, we are fringe of a very important election, and it's not designed, and it's something that is very difficult for me also to get my mind around what's going on. But what I liked, and I found it very interesting in those what happened with the pivot of Biden stepping out. It was all of a sudden a guy that no one basically around the world had heard of. Tim Walz came out of nowhere as a coach, as a leader that cherished hard work and activity, but having a background from Nebraska. And I lived a year in Nebraska myself. So,
wow.
yes, so I got to experience a lot of these things that I also write about in the book. So obviously the US is about the Declaration of Independence, the individual rights and the goals and the dreams. But I think also today's society, if we apply to the collective, and this is one of the core learnings in the book, is if you uplift the collective and you have an intrinsic motivation to grow, it's better for you to learn and grow if everyone around you is doing better. There's a concept in Norway called dugnad, where you basically just show up and you buy into the collective. So in this book, I kind of sort of unite collectivism and individualism. And I think Waltz and Harris came out and applied to a big group of people where you unified a Democratic Party that was also divided within to buy into a positive future. I talk about possibilism, a possibilistic future where if we get together and work as a collective, we can have individuals rise above. And this is also the learning out of these individual athletes that I write about in the book, that all of a sudden came out in sports that has nothing to do with snow, like running and soccer and all these huge sports, golf, tennis. And if you look at what made them successful, it's not even clear that Norway knows it themselves. But on the one hand, you have a strong relationship to your father, a mentor, someone that gives you the trust in life. And when you have trust and you can play around with things, you can cause friction. And if you have trust and friction in an organization, you can have progress. So taking this concept back to business, we used to have the coffee machine where people bumped into each other, right? It was a $1 trillion industry where basically people had a core trust. We went to home and worked from home office and do Zoom and zombie sessions, and we lost the trust in the unity. And I think that is what we have also seen around the world, that we have lost trust in governments. We have lost trust in the common, in the united part of being one unit. And coming back to your rowing boat experience, if you look at an organization in Norway, you don't know who's the boss. You can go into a boardroom and you can't figure out. They're working together. And I think that was also, if you take the cultural aspect of it, how the Vikings came together and they had to perform together. And they were interdependent to a high performance culture of values that was based on that everyone had to contribute. And you can have superstars and individualism, but if the collective didn't work, then nothing worked. And I think that is what we're seeing today, is that also for the US, I think this is essential. And I think this is also what Tim Walz applied to, like a declaration of interdependence. You have like an unwritten commitment to serve the common good in order that you as an individual can live a fulfilling life by growing. So I think that is your analogy to the boat, without, trash talking the Minnesota Vikings. I think that is something that we can also, in a historical perspective, learn that I am because you are. We can only, achieve a progress for humanity together, and that's the foundation. And within that space, if we uplift others, then we can rise as individuals. And I think that is kind of sort of like a reinforcement learning model, where you serve into the common good, you serve into collective, there get better, you have a playing field where you can rise, you can challenge yourself, and through that trust and that friction, you can have progress. So I think that's the essence also of this Viking Code model. So I hope that gives you a longer background on how I think about the Vikings and also football, by the way.
You were talking about something called super trust, which that's the first time I had seen that term used before. Is that what you're talking about here, or is that something different?
Well, when I talk about the foundation of trust, I think what you might be referring to is also the essence of self-trust, that deeper foundation of in today's society, I see a lot of managers that act out of a hierarchical structure, the power play of, delegating, communicating from a upper position in like a pyramid or a triangle, that you have a boss at the top that can, be a force. I think that's overplayed insecurity in today's society. So the strength come out of, showing vulnerability and leaning into things that you don't know. We live in such a fast time in a complexive world, and the complexity is increasing. So if you're caught off guard in front of your team, it's not weakness to say that I don't know what this is about. It's actually a strength. You're talking out of a vulnerable place, and vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation and creation. It's the birthplace of building healthy relationship. So when you're confronted with a topic and someone comes around with some new AI modules that you're using or quantum tech and whatever, you feel it in your stomach, this awkward feeling of getting caught off guard. If you try to look important, if you try to be the manager, the boss, that comes across as non-authentic. And if you then, just listen to that inner voice or that feeling, that gut feeling, then you could just say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'll go home and I'll read about it and I'll get back tomorrow and we can have a healthy discussion on eye level and we can have progress. And that's what leaders do. So, and that is self-trust, to train self-trust, to trust yourself. That's a foundation of trusting others. And I see a society today, in particular, with a lot of young men that run around with a shield, with a kind of sort of an insecure, overplayed, sometimes narcissistic power structure. And that's not strength, and that's not building healthy organization. That's not building progress. So the challenge in business today is actually that we don't have enough leaders that lean into that, and we don't have culture. And I think leadership and culture are the foundations of building profitable and also successful organizations. So I think that those are the two most important topics to focus on in a world that it's about management and reaction and algorithms. So yeah, I think self-trust is what I've written about a lot. And if that is a super trust, I think that's what we're referring to.
Interesting. Our ancestors, Anders, went out and explored other countries and set out in their boats and, went other places. Courage, part of the Viking Code. I would love to hear your philosophy and the current today snapshot on risk taking.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back 1,000 years, you have Thor and his fellow colleagues leaving the family behind, going into an open boat, light open boat. And people would come across and say, Thor, where were we heading? I have no idea. Okay, good. When are we coming back? I have no idea.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're like, are we coming back? I don't know. Yeah, great idea. Let's all jump into this and just sail. Yeah. So that was and I think that's also very human. It's a deeper drive to explore and be curious. And I think historically speaking, there have been many periods and epochs in time where you had that, barbarian drive for conquering land and killing people and ranting and raving. I think, to some extent we have, managed to evolve. But I think that risk-taking part is today something that a lot of business leaders struggle with. And I think it has a lot to do with the curiosity to learn and understand the potentialities of technology. I write about what I call anticipated future. So what do you think is a plausible future? When I get into a discussion with leaders about this, I ask them, do you really think we will go back to a Nokia 5110 and play the snake game without internet? Or do you think that we will progress, right? And everyone come to the conclusion that we have 80 years of exponential growth in technology. Why should it stop now? Why should we have a stagnation in breakthroughs in science? So I foresee a world where AI and high performance computing drives the periodic table to add new minerals, to add new substances. We go from the 118 up to maybe 130 and 140. Out of that, we will build new batteries that are much, much more efficient, much stronger. We will figure out a lot of things, how to cope with diseases. We will have probably almost an infinite access to energy, where at least the marginal cost of the next kilowatt that you add into the grid or that you produce will have almost zero cost. What does that mean for businesses? And I think today that a lot of business leaders don't see that. They argue or resonate as if the studies of the past are projected into the future. And therefore, also, the risk-taking part is more about protection and reaction and trying to kind of sort of navigate instead of to create. And if you talk to people about it, they think, yeah, obviously, it will continue. Say, but why don't you think about that? What does it mean for your business? If you have a Walmart that has all of a sudden put solar panels on all the roofs, and you have a local distribution of energy, and they are, through the efficiency, they will be self-servant and they will have a free energy for their own demand. But they will have an overproduction. What do they do with that? They can sell it back into a grid. They can probably then think about new models. It would be very easy to say, come to Walmart, load and charge your EV for free. We give you free energy. You load the car. You go back, you have a new battery that is twice as good as the one that we have today, and you just plug your house into the car. And a battery today can serve the electric need of a house for 2 to 3 days. Probably in 10 to 15 years, or 5 maybe even, there will be 5 to 6 days. So you can go shopping, you plug your car, you load it with a supercharger during your shopping, so you have literally no effort. You come back out, and since you're a loyal customer, you get it for free. You go back and you have a bi-directional battery structure and you charge your house. So you're going to disrupt the whole energy sector. There will be challenges for big suppliers. You need the grid. You need to update. And through these market economical mechanisms, you will drive innovation. So the word sustainability that we use in the US and Europe is probably a word that in 10 years from now will be replaced by efficiency. If you're not efficient with resources, you will not make money. You will not have EBIT. And if you don't make money, you can't build businesses. And this is what will shape future business models. And I don't see a lot of leaders today that explore that. And probably that is very related to your question in terms of risk taking. We just don't understand. We react and we don't think. And I think, in a world of reaction, we need to figure out that we can create a space of reflection and think, what is a plausible future? Many people say I have very extreme ideas and thoughts and very futuristic. I think they're really boring. It's just a prediction of the continuum of the past 80 years. I think it would be radical to say that we would stop. I think there would be a lot of breakthrough in science. I think technology will progress. And out of that, I can reason how the world will look in 10 years. And so I think that is very related to the risk-taking part.
Yeah, Audrey, I've always wondered, when I'm in an indoor cycling class or whatever, it's like, why aren't we using all that energy that we're using on the bikes or whatever to power the gym? And yet we don't. It's like, I always wondered, why that doesn't happen. And all those people on the treadmills, okay, where's all that energy going? Why can't that be? It's like, but yet we haven't even done that. Yeah. So it's like, yeah.
I think that is a technological issue. It's not as strong as you might believe, but if you take the sun has 10,000-fold the energy that we need to serve the planet every single day. So we don't have an energy problem. We have a storage and distribution problem. And anyone that thinks that we will not proceed with better storage and better distribution, I think does not get how the world is evolving. And coming back to my home country, it's almost an absurdity that the Germans are complaining about high energy prices, yet still they are exporting offshore wind energy to my home country, Norway, so that my father can charge his electronic car to a negative price every Sunday, because you have to empty the grid because of the structures of the electric system. So there is something called redispatch costs, because if you don't empty the grid, all the other energy forms like coal and others, they can't be kept up and running. So all the green energy is basically sold off to a negative price in order to have the system function. And I do not think that that is a unsolvable task for humanity, to have better distribution of this. So this is some of the things that when you look deeper into the material, you get that this is not how it will be in 10 years. Unfortunately, if I listen to talk shows and look at media, I don't see a lot of so self-proclaimed experts digging deep in the material to see how actually we have evolved over the past 10 years, and most likely in the next years will continue. And that to me is a bit of a strange place, because to me it sounds plausible that we will have progress. So it's much more, much easier to reason from that perspective than to see that we will have stagnation.
It's that quantum leap as opposed to this incremental progress is what I hear you saying. Is that fair?
Yeah, well, I don't need, I don't, if we go to that quantum space, so when we apply quantum technology, which is obviously, special purpose machines for very complex problems, and if there is a quantum computer, it has a double exponential progress. So the shift will be faster, but I think we are seeing a linear path of exponentiality. So if you put it on a graph where you have the cost and you have the computation, there's a straight line, a linear path of exponentiality for the past 80 years, be it wars or pandemic. There is nothing that holds us back from continuing to progress on technological achievements. And I don't even see it as a quantum leap. I just see that if it continues at the same pace, then it will have huge impact on businesses and business models. If it speeds up, which I would predict, then it's even more radical. So yes, I think the technological tsunami is still ahead, but even if it continues at the same rate, even then the world will look much more different in 10 years than it is today. And I think if that being conservative and saying it continues at the same rate, then that enough to make some predictions about the future that are pretty different to what we perceive and think about the world today.
Everyone should follow you on your website, andersindset.com, because and it's ANDERSINDSET.com, everybody, because your brain is fully moving in the swim with how fast everything is moving. And I feel like your brain has left my brain in the dust, and I need to read the book to at least get caught up to you right now, and then follow your website going forward, because this is all kind of mind blowing. You're moving with things as they move, and the rest of us are trying to process what's happening to us now. Lee, do you feel like that?
Yeah, I like to always, I feel like my job as CEO is to be, and the visionary of the company really is to be working years in advance. So it's like I have some employees or whatever that focus on the day to day, and then I have managers who focus on month to month, and senior vice presidents and everything like that worry about a year or two in the future. And I feel like my job is to be worried about not only a year or two in the future, but what does this look like in 5 years, 6 years, and the possibilities of setting aside our traditional way of thinking, the way we've always done things or whatever, and to think different. And and sometimes it comes off as a bit being a bit of a screwball. I mean, getting people to buy in. But occasionally, whenever I come up with something really good, so it's like I dig futurist. I love futurist, and just being able to think differently and think what if, in an environment where we're unencumbered by the realities of what the accounting department says and what the legal department says and everything like that. So no, I think that. I think it's fair for people to feel that way, but it's like on the other hand, it's like we all have our own unique strengths. We all have our own hidden talents, and we know what Anders is, but you Audrey also have your own unique strengths and hidden talents, whatever that we've uncovered over the years, and I feel like we've done the same with me. So I think that we all have a place in that boat, right? And we all have our own talents that we bring to that boat. And as long as we all row together, then it's like, we'll get there faster.
Yeah, very well said. I mean, I think that is the nucleus of the collective. But that being said, I think we're in a time now where the technological implications
Yes.
of how we live are so far of the normal perception of how technology function. So in the past, we have kind of sort of explored progress and reacted on mistakes. So we said, is it achievable? The question that we will come to in not many years is, do we want to have it? So if we have a world in which everything you can dream about, everything you can imagine is already there, or literally just there to create, the famous "if you can dream it, you can do it" then becomes just a question of, do we want to? What kind of future is worth striving for? And that is the radical implication of technology that we will be confronted with. If you ask a science fiction writer today to write a movie, a script, or a book, it's becoming hard. It's difficult to come up with fiction. So my colleague, Florian Neukert, who lives in San Francisco, we write something that we refer to as sci-fi, but with a PHI, science philosophy. So
Yes.
yeah, so
You're
we are
combining my two favorite things, a psychological thriller and science fiction. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so we come to the kind of sort of realize that that if you play with knowledge, you have to know your assumptions, and it's very difficult to know something at the fundamental truth, and it becomes kind of sort of a philosophy. But if you can state it today, it's almost inevitable that you can create it. So everything you can put a word on, a tag on, or something that you can outline, we're just years or not many years away from achieving that. It's kind of sort of the unification of mythology and enlightenment. And the question then becomes much more fundamental, because it then goes, where we started today. What does it mean to be a mensch, a human being? What is the meaning? And all these philosophical questions then becomes very, very relevant on a practical level, because we have to decide what we want to achieve. So I just came down from downstairs where I'm at right now playing the piano. We could always put a robot that played much better piano than I do. But the question is, do I want that, right? And that's the radical challenge that humanity is confronted with. And I think that's something that we will come to realize within the next decade. And we need a lot of security. We need a lot of, kind of sort of what you refer to, Lee, as a coming together and rowing together. It is a global interdependent village that we have to figure out how organize human life and how it's going to cope with this. So a lot of things to do. Exciting time and very also frightening at the same time. But the beauty is, I'm not so much into that futuristic part. I see future as a verb. It is something we do, to future. And the beauty that I experience is that never in the history of humanity could we future more than we can today. We have resources, technology, we have opportunities. Never in the history of humanity could an individual, at least in a Western world perspective, future more than today. So getting out of that reaction bubble into a creation mode, I think that's the beauty of life. It's a wonderful journey to nowhere, but we get to fill that with some kind of creationalism. And as I said, I think never in the history of humanity could we future more than we can today.
So get proactive, get ready for the next decade, get the book, The Viking Code, the art and science of Norwegian success. Anders, we went long, but I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for 7 hours. So, we got to wrap things up, but thank you. This is great.
Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you so much, Lee, for having me. We should do this 7 hours sometime.
Oh, yes.
That'd be awesome.
It would be easy.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information at salesfuel.com.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.